Hello, welcome to the next instalment of the Blueprint Blether. Today we're going to chat about triple threat players and a lot about kicking. So just a few introductions. My name's Scott Riddle, Game Development Manager for Caledonia Midlands. We're here with James Wade, Neil Graham, and then the man himself, Craig Dods. So
Welcome, Craig.
Welcome. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
So, Dodsy, just tell us a wee bit about your role with Scottish Rugby then.
So I started in July, a brand new role in specialist skills and kicking. So my sort of remit is around under 20s, under 18s and down for boys and girls, as well as some of the women's stuff. The thistles that are going on at the moment have been in helping around that. And helping Mossy where I can as well, obviously. Legend, my hero. So it's a bit surreal to be working with him sometimes, but it's cool.
Gala boys sticking together, obviously.
Of course, mate. Absolutely.
What's been the best part about the job then? Because it's quite a new role. I don't think we've had anything like this before. So what you enjoyed most about it?
I think I said this to Fletch the other way when we were speaking. Like it sounds stupid, but everyone's buzzing when I arrive because it's like, oh, we're doing the best part. Like we're doing a bit of nudging, so I've got the easy job. Like I don't need to create a buzz around what we do because people love that side of the game. What's the first thing people do when they go out to train? Kick drop goals for 40 metres. So I just make it a little bit more formal.
Nice. I think that probably leads us quite nicely on today's chat, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose like kicking's obviously a big part of the modern game, and we're seeing some great instances where we're sat off the back of an international Scotland v Wales where there was some incredible kicks, and obviously there's a picture of Finn there, kicked the ball a number of times, but we were just chatting before about the variety of kicks. So which was your favourite try from the weekend then, Dodsy?
I think it's got to be Blair Kinghorn's, that sort of kick pass on the run from Finn. It's a real difficult skill in terms of like he's a lot of moving parts. There's been a lot of sort of Duhan's been up flat. There's been an option to kick. There's a lot of different people involved in it as well, and the way that he kicks and his variation changes pictures and defences. He's quite happy to get on with it. Like we were just speaking before around. I was interested around what it used to be like for Glasgow. I don't remember it, so went on Opta, typed in Finn Russell cross kick, and up they came. And he's always done that. Like he's always backed himself to be able to kick the ball to space. Not necessarily as successful as what we saw on Saturday, but I think what you see now is definitely more successful than he is in finding that, and that's through just years and years of practice in training and in game. He just backs himself to do it.
Nice, it certainly does. So we're just to bring ourselves a wee bit back more online with the blueprint that we have out at the moment. So we have a number of core games that are within the blueprint, and we're going to do a wee bit of a deep dive now into one of them, and that's Skye Ball. So Neil, could you just give us a wee bit of an overview of Skye Ball?
Yeah, Skye Ball changed names a few times actually. I think it was Finn Ball at one point, and then we thought, come on, that's a Skye bridge over to Skye in the air. That's how we got to. So so Skye Ball's a really good starter game for trying to encourage kicking in games. Dodgy, you're going to talk about maybe some adaptations you've made for it in a minute, but yeah, in essence, you're allowed 2 players offside. You can have as many as you want offside, but we've got 2 players here in an offside position. Those are obviously attacking players. You're allowed 1 defensive player in the backfield, and that just enables an opportunity, an enhanced opportunity to kick to a player. It really encourages the scanning, as we've seen when we've been filming this. Encourages the first receiver, anyone really, to scan that backfield, which I think is a skill. Before we even think about kicking, is what opportunities are available, and this just encourages people to look in that backfield beyond that defensive line. We've got mild, hot, spicy as usual. Some different adaptations using step, and I think Dodgy, you've kind of used this, haven't you, as a starter game, but then maybe progressed it into some other opportunities.
Yeah, so sort of first trialled it around August when we were in camp with under 18s in Stirling. I kind of saw a game through a guy called Richie Murphy. He's an Irish kicking coach at the time. So he used a double bounce, gets you your point. So no sort of offside players or anything like that. But then it does encourage still obviously that backfield and that backfield coverage. What we found sort of unintended consequences is when we go for the 2 bounces for a point. suddenly people are starting to put in grubbers, so you get those 2 bounces really early. So we started trying to obviously adapt how we do it, because actually, like grubbering and puttering it through is definitely a real good option at times. So we've actually said that those can only be then attacking kicks, and you've got to get the ball back. But what we try and so in my game, what we've been called it is drop zone. It's 2-touch turnover, and those 2 bounces need to be in the faraway 15, so it's across pitch. So that's almost like your 22. So if you get a bouncing out off the side of the pitch, that's like a 50-22. One in dead does not count, but 2 bounces in the 50-22 in the 22 is a point for the team. So you're almost trying to use it to beat the backfield, and we've definitely used it as certainly I've used it as a term to sort of measure how accurate and sort of the decision making around their kicks as well.
Nice. So in terms of the getting the ball on the grass, that 2 bounces, just why? Like, why do we want that? I was a forward, didn't kick much, Dodsy, I must admit, did not kick much. I enjoyed kicking actually when I became a coach rather than when a player. Scott, you'll probably testify to that. Why we wanting the ball on the grass?
For me, I think 2 bounces in, it becomes really unpredictable. Like, I think if you get 2 bounces in, you'll get 3, and then suddenly you get 4, and then like it becomes unpredictable. You have time to then put a bit of kick pressure on. So if that kick battle, that kick tennis comes, we can put pressure on if we find grass with 2 bounces, or we can actually make a tackle and make a real gain out of it. So for me, finding grass is so important with that unpredictability of the rugby ball.
Magic. Yeah, I love it. Love that adaptation. I guess one thing, what we learned from introducing that game, any coaching tips for coaches out there using this type of activity?
Certainly when you're getting to that sort of 17, 18-year-old, it brings that backfield coverage into it as well. So you also get points by running over that 22 or the 15-metre line. So we've got to think about closing the gate in defence, that whole pendulum work around our back 3 defence. Are we happy with how many people we've got in the backfield versus the front field, depending on where we are in the pitch? And because it's 2-phase turnover, like two-touch turnover, what I find is in these sort of games, like even rugby league touch, five touch, whatever it is, people use it as an afterthought. Like, we've got to 2-5 phases, now we have to kick. What are the defence expecting you to do in that last phase? Kick. So can we maybe get it going on the front foot? Because what we find is it's like if we can kick on the front foot, actually it's a much better tool around that, getting that double bounce potentially because they're not expecting it, or just gaining territory, or potentially attacking kicks as well and getting the ball back. So like when it's that afterthought, definitely we feel like defence is on top.
Yeah, nice. I guess we've been talking about like the triple threat situations, Scotty, haven't we, in this, about, it's not just about the kick, but we also don't just want the kick to be on the last phase in a training game. So any thoughts on that, Scotty?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily just about the kicker. I think an overall understanding across a team or a squad or a group of players, that if there's collective understanding of seeing space and identifying it, communicating it, you're linking up wider players, narrower players who are more active around the ball, looking for space maybe just in behind the defensive line or deeper potentially. So it opens up a whole host of other options. I think if we can only just carry the ball and we take out passing, then that's pretty easy to defend. It's a tackle, isn't it? So
that's the thing for me from watching the game on the weekend, is certainly if we just take Finn for example, the defence don't know whether he is going to run, pass or kick, and obviously he's got a number of different versions of being able to run, evade, different passing options, different kicking options. It must be really difficult to defend.
Definitely.
And just that challenge that it brings and the pressure.
I think Skye Ball is probably the one game where it's overtly about kicking, but kicking's actually part of all the blueprint games, isn't it? So one thing I just want to chat to Dods is we still get a bit of nervousness from coaches around kicking, like, oh, don't kick, there's no kicking this. What would you say to coaches to encourage, like, why should they allow players to explore kicking in all their games?
I think, again, we talked about it like when it first introduced into many sort of midi rugby. If you say you can kick, everyone does it really quickly and does it loads, and then maybe that picture changes and the penny drops, and suddenly, they're maybe actually starting to expect that a little bit now. There's going to be run space. So a lot of what we try and encourage what I'm trying to encourage across the board is actually, there's a technical element to it, but it's that tactical decision making around when to do it as well. So like, what information are we seeing to then allow us to kick or make that decision to kick? In in your games, like they're doing it for a reason, whether it's to relieve pressure, transfer pressure, there's various things, challenge defensive systems, like, although it sounds a bit more technical, but a kid at midi rugby might see somebody that's a bit taller. I've got a taller player than you, I'm gonna kick it across here, I've got a better chance of catching it. You know what I mean? That just might be their thought process around it as well. So let it happen, and then maybe challenge after, like, so what did you see to inform that decision? Because then we're going to start to get that learning as well, and learning in the moment. And I think a big thing in training, like Fletch has definitely been big on that, is can we freeze it? Can we stop it? What did you see there? Can you do it again? Mm-hmm. All right, or if you
replay.
Yeah, absolutely. Replay, or and if just reaffirm that learning. If it was good, like, can you do it again? If it's not, what did you see to inform it? If it was the right decision, go and give it another bash.
I think there's something there, isn't it? The decision is the big thing, isn't it? Like, the execution won't be great to start with. I mean, kicking, as you know, obviously is your job, quite a technical thing, but if we get players seeing that space down the backfield and playing around with it, I think that's a really important thing. And I think there's something you said right at the start. Players love it. Like when you said you've got the easy job, people are buzzing when Craig turns up. We're buzzing that he's here to talk about kicking. So yeah, and it's all about, we talked about learn environments, doing things that people love, and if it's part of the game that gets people excited, then why wouldn't you give it a go?
Yeah, and like it's different scoring systems. Yeah. Like when we're talking about, like, it's not just winning, losing. How do we redefine it? I'm watching games now. I'll watch any game and I see a double bounce and go, well done, mate, that's a point. Brilliant. Like,
your scoring system in the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes through my head all the time. It's like, Richie Simpson against England 20s, got a double bounce. Brilliant, Richie, there's a point, mate. Like, go in and they know it as well. You can have a laugh about it because that's one of our stock games every week now.
Oh, brilliant.
I think that's really interesting, Dods, that you're watching the game and the scoreboard is important, but actually scoring a game retrospectively, so could be a real good skill development opportunity where it's not necessarily about the overall outcome, but it's I feel like I said this on a previous Blether, but the process is important. So what other things would you maybe look to score in terms of, like, double bounce? What other things could you maybe score?
I think for regardless of the type of kick, I think there's a massive emphasis on, because your 10s, your 9s have got really busy, they've got a lot to worry about in the ruck. It's like, how active are your outside backs, your fullback, your winger? You saw for Finn's cross kicks. Finn's cross kicks.
The king.
The king Finn. That players are active off the ball. Like, Kyle Staines flat, he's an available option. If he's deep and he's tight, Finn kicks that and he's maybe chasing it and he's not getting to that. But because he's wide, he's a threat. Same with Duhan on his. If that kick isn't necessarily technically well executed, which absolutely happens, they can then go and attack it because they can see it all the way. So there's a massive emphasis on that. So I would definitely, don't know how you'd score it, but have a look at around how active we are off the ball at recognising it. And Duncan Munn's a great example for you see it in training and in games, that he's definitely recognising either space long or that kick space pass as well. So off a turnover, he's pointing, he's calling back right or whatever it is. There's space to be hit and beat the backfield in there as well.
We talked in the last Blether about stepping zones, about zones can encourage people to kind of promote them into certain areas. So that could be a good one to try with the kicking ones.
What do you think about, we were chatting earlier about, off both feet. So I'm interested to know a couple of things. Do you encourage players to try and develop a certain skill level off both feet? I can just imagine how challenging that will be. But keen to get your thoughts on it. And the other one is just for like youngsters coming through, like coaches out there trying to get kids to kick who aren't maybe that interested in it. What any tips and hints?
I think with the sort of, go to your first question, a lot of attacking kicks can be used right, left foot. I think that reactive sort of, whether it's right to left and dropping it on the left foot, or left to right and dropping it on the right foot, there's definitely scope around that, and I would definitely encourage that, because it's a lot around touch and feel. And again, like, it doesn't necessarily look great all the time technically, but if you're getting the right weight and you're getting the right distance, then absolutely, like, we're kicking it to space, so brilliant.
When you talk about attacking kicks, just what type of kicks do you look at?
So grubbers, chips, kick pass.
Cool.
I wouldn't. So attacking kick, you could count it as a high ball and stuff like that. And you said you saw Finn do it.
I think it's England who tried the left-footed high ball.
But listen, it's definitely not discouraged. Like, if you want to do it and you want to practice it, absolutely. Like, if you're exiting, we don't like that word, or entering the other another zone, you're probably setting up to do it, so you'll have time around like getting on your strong foot and being able to do it really well. Because you'll have this set up, there'll be blockers, there'll be various parts of it. Definitely encourage nines around box kick, to use right and left. A lot of kickoffs are geared around, so restarts and things like that are geared around what footage your nine is. So for example, he's a right footed, teams will kick right to the right because there's maybe an easier charge down and the nine's having to kick over his head and it's a more difficult kick. So if they can actually kick off their left, suddenly it maybe changes a restart other team's perception on what they can do. So
yeah, nice. And it's just going to take time, isn't it? It'll take a number of years, if not a decade of training to get really proficient at it. But I think that's one thing. I remember chatting to Mossy about it. Just be really patient as coaches with players. They're not going to be able to kick off their left foot or non-dominant foot easily. It'll take a lot of time. So like little activities, even maybe isolating some little training drills and stuff might help. But yeah, that's really really nice. And what about like young coaches, sort of youth level? Any little training tips and coaching tips?
I think a real easy one around kicking, because rugby ball's obviously different shape, it's more difficult the more used to football. Use a football. It's like more consistent, you know what I mean? Like if it's a bit of a mishit, they're still going to get probably that good outcome, like, so you can definitely measure that 2 bounces, because it's going to be a really good kick if we're kicking a football and it's 2 bounces, because it becomes predictable, the backfield can predict it. But if we recognise space really well, then you're probably going to get the point, because it's more consistent on your foot, as opposed to a rugby ball. If you get the ball dropped slightly wrong on your rugby ball, you're going to shank it, you're going to hook it, you're maybe not going to get it in that right place. But in terms of outcome, learning how to do it, that football is definitely a good starting point.
Nice, good little tips for
it's great hearing you, Dodzy, like listen to the full repertoire of all the different types of kick. But what's your view on a spiral?
Oh, I absolutely love it. It's funny how it comes round in circles, because obviously, my dad's era in the 80s, it was all spirals. He still stands behind the post, collects conversions and spirals them back, so it's definitely not changed on that. But I think it's definitely coming back into the game. I'd
skid out for 50, 22.
Yeah, absolutely. Those low trajectory ones. I know certainly with the way it is now, the way teams defend for 50-22s, they put 2 players wide in the 15s, so that middle part of the area is the middle part of the field is actually a good one to beat the backfield and get your 2 bounces, and that's where a spiral is probably a better one. In terms of it'll skid and it'll stop, whereas if you get end over end, then you get that sort of unpredictable, unlucky bounce. It could potentially roll dead, especially on 3Gs. But the spiral certainly sits a little bit more on 3Gs. So we do work on it. We don't work on it as much as end over end. We definitely try and master the end over end part of it first. It's a bit more accurate. It's more predictable for us. Like, we can definitely be a bit better around it. Once we've nailed that, we definitely try and look for spirals with our 10s, with our fullbacks and stuff. But you are seeing it a lot more coming back in the game.
It's being creative, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing worse as a fullback than a tight spiral diving towards you, because the flight is just so hard to read. The end of the end tends to be a bit more predictable to get under, but I've dropped a few in my time.
You're seeing you're seeing spiral bombs.
Yes.
Like everyone's doing it. Yeah. Like England now practicing. This has come from rugby league, but dead ducks. Like trying to kick it right in the middle of the ball, so then it floats, and it's actually floating like that when it comes down. Like, they are really brutal.
Tough, isn't it? Really tough.
They're brutal to catch.
Yeah, it's like that's from football, isn't it? Like, kind of like where they stop with a knuckleball.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. That's exactly what it is. And like, so actually, the technical execution, like the perfect kick, isn't looking like that anymore. You only see sort of things when people have time, because obviously they're pretty complicated, but. They're definitely the variations is massive now. Bananas kicks are coming in as well when you're tight to the touchline. It's really good. Like, it's really interesting.
I love that expression, beat the backfield. It's a great way to bring it to life a wee bit more if you're looking to beat the backfield. Obviously, how would we looking to then counter that if teams are what would be like the things you're looking from your backfield players?
Similar, like defence is all pretty similar at the moment in terms of backfield coverage. You sit with 2 players on the 15s waiting for those 50-22s. So urgency to get the ball. So like little things we've also added into drop zone is like if you catch it on the full, the person that kicked it is then out for the next phase of play. So they'll lose them for 2 phases. So then there's an opportunity. So like that's that bad kick or that poorer kick that gives you the opportunity to counter. So it's just recognising from a backfield perspective is like when is the opportunity to do that. So like how can we add that into our games, or when we actually just we maybe just reset and we'll kick long here, because there's definitely a part of that, and you're not always going to beat the backfield. I think like there's maybe an emphasis on hitting grass a lot of the time, which is great. Like we obviously want to do that ideally, but sometimes we just want to be able to kick as long as we can into a channel. So then it gives them a tougher kick, and then you're waiting maybe for that third one or that fourth one to then go on a counter attack because you've put them under pressure.
Sort of framing a hierarchy of outcomes a wee bit, and
totally.
If we can't do that, then we'll look to do that. If we can't win the ball back, we can't do that. If we can't, it's awesome. But I think that has been really insightful.
Do you have time for one more question? I'm just keen to pick Dods' brain when I say it. We talk about kicking for backs quite a lot, forwards kicking. What do you think?
Never.
No.
Interesting, because Fletcher's got views on this, hasn't he? Which is about trying to get more players in the team capable of kicking because it's not anticipated. So that's sort of his view on it, and I think we are starting to see a bit of that. I mean, look at Tipperick, he can kick a ball pretty well, and it causes some challenges. So be interesting to get your thoughts on that.
Ben Errol had one on Saturday as well, in the edge. So like definitely the way that teams play now, they always tend to have a forward in the wide channel. So I think that's probably where your biggest opportunity is for it. Like winger close in, there's maybe a little bit of space in behind. So I think the forward then has a decision to make around kick pass run. So I think that's probably the biggest area around it. Those kicks along the ground and stuff. But listen, when you're young, like 14, 15, I'd definitely encourage everyone to do it, because like the amount of people that we see changing positions when they're getting at 18, 19 is pretty crazy. Like the numbers that we're seeing. So definitely having that skill set when you're getting up. So.
I've got in my mind John Welsh, Newcastle.
Oh, the chip and chase.
Chip and chase
yes.
in my mind. I mean, good creativity.
Yep. Didn't expect
ambition,
it.
Good ambition.
The best one I've seen when you're talking about spirals as well was Ty Byrne for Munster. I think it might even been a 50-22.
I think it was, yeah.
Like long spiral, he absolutely bombed it.
He could play 10 though.
Yeah, he loves it.
That's good. That's
he played Gaelic football instantly. That's probably where it comes from, yeah.
Left footer
so that's his skill set.
Left footer always looks better.
Cool. Yeah, good. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I think we'll wrap that up there. Awesome to have you on, Dodsy. Thanks very much for giving up the time, and just keep an eye out for the next Blueprint Blether. So thanks everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, Dodsy. Thanks.